9:58 a.m., Caribbean Sea. An AH-1Z Viper breaks from the deck of the USS Gerald R and hammers south at over 150 knots. No ceremony, no hesitation. Just raw American air power doing what it does best, showing up uninvited to someone else's bad decision. Several miles ahead, a Venezuelan go-fast is ripping through the Caribbean Express route like it owns the ocean. Spoiler, it doesn't. The crew thinks their twin outboards and a wide-open throttle make them untouchable. What they don't know is that their heat signature was flagged 20 minutes ago by a P-8A Poseidon cruising at 20,000 feet. They're not racing toward freedom. They're racing toward a geometry problem they can't solve. And the answer is already airborne. This is international waters, the kind of place where the United States doesn't ask permission to enforce maritime law. And right now, that enforcement is vectoring in at Mach 1.3. If you want to see how a billion-dollar weapons system handles a fiberglass speedboat, hit subscribe. Because what happens next is textbook, and it's over before they even hear the motor ignition. The interception didn't start at sea level. It started where civilian jets don't fly, high enough that the Poseidon's multi-spectral sensor suite could pick apart thermal noise like sorting rice from rocks. One signature jumped off the screen. Two screaming outboards pushing 45+ knots on a laser-straight northbound track. No drift, no course correction, no legitimate reason to be moving that fast in that direction. The Poseidon crew tagged it, locked the thermal plume, and dumped the coordinates into the Navy's tactical data link. Every few seconds, the track file updated. Heading, velocity, drift rate, predicted intercept windows. By the time the Viper crew got the feed, the target wasn't a possibility anymore. It was a plotted entity with a countdown timer. 18 nautical miles out, the Viper began planning weapons employment. The smugglers? Still clueless. That's the gap where American reach lives, between "I think I'm getting away" and "I've already been marked for deletion." The helicopter dropped low, hugging the water to stay under the boat's visual horizon. This wasn't a chase, it was a setup. The Viper angled its approach to cut across the smuggler's projected path, not follow behind it. Attack Geometry 101. Don't chase the rabbit. Intercept the line it's running. The Poseidon fed updates from above. The Viper crept in from below. And the go-fast? Still sprinting north like the ocean was empty. It wasn't. Inside the cockpit, the pilot activated the helmet-mounted targeting system, TSS for short, pairing it with the forward-looking infrared camera. The two feeds merged into a single thermal stream, painting the smuggler boat's engine heat as a bright, angry smear cutting across cooler water. Closure rate, 195 knots. Range, shrinking fast. The numbers didn't lie, and neither did the track file. The boat was exactly where the Poseidon said it would be. Back on the Gerald R. radar operators held their own picture. They weren't controlling the engagement, but they were building what the Navy calls a soft barrier, a unified view that confirmed nothing else was sneaking in from another angle. Surface radar, airborne sensors, and the helicopter's optics all overlapped into one clean corridor of certainty. The Viper kept its systems restrained. No hard lock, no escalation posture, just passive tracking with full situational dominance, what aviators call deterrence by visibility. The message was simple. We see you, we can reach you, and we're deciding whether or not to care. Then the boat started dancing. 45-degree turns every 30 seconds. Sharp, aggressive, textbook evasion. The kind of maneuvering you only see from crews who've done this before and know what's hunting them. It's a classic smuggler tactic. Break the predictive track, confuse the targeting system, buy a few seconds. This time, it bought them nothing. The TSS and FLIR combo absorbed the turns like they were standing still, recalculating faster than the crew could juke. Every maneuver just confirmed intent. They weren't slowing down. They weren't looking for radio contact. They weren't heading for port. They were running, fully committed, and betting everything on speed. Bad bet. At 5.5 kilometers, the Hellfire on the Viper's wing went hot. Inside the missile's guidance package, the seeker head dropped to -200 degrees C to sharpen thermal sensitivity. The ring laser gyro spun up to 40,000 RPM, stabilizing the whole system for the acceleration spike that was about to come. The aircraft had crossed from shadowing into striking. The pilot selected lock-on before launch, LOBL, because the atmospherics were clean and the laser designator was rock solid. Then came the attack profile: direct strike, flat trajectory, waterline impact, no top-down arc, no armor penetration overkill, just a precision hit at the seam where fiberglass meets ocean, the weakest point on a boat built for speed, not survival. A waterline strike isn't dramatic, it's efficient. The warhead opens the hull. The ocean finishes the job. The Viper's laser stayed locked despite the boat's erratic rocking. The turret stabilization system filtered out the shake, holding the beam steady on target. Meanwhile, the Poseidon and the destroyer kept feeding updates: thermal signature from above, radar track from the surface, dual-angle coverage, no ambiguity, no guesswork. This was the moment operational planners call the gray zone, where identification, legality, and threat assessment converge. The target had refused to stop. It had evaded. It was moving at high speed on a known smuggling corridor in international waters, where the U.S. had clear enforcement authority. All conditions met. Decision made. The pilot committed. The helicopter shuddered briefly as the Hellfire separated from the rail. The rocket motor lit instantly, slamming the weapon forward with nearly 20 Gs of acceleration. Within seconds, it punched through the transonic barrier and hit Mach 1.1 to 1.3, faster than the smugglers could blink, let alone react. The missile climbed, then dove, classic Hellfire profile, lifting above the boat's line of sight before angling down into the strike arc. Inside its computer, thousands of calculations per second adjusted pitch and roll, tracking the laser reflection off the hull. The guidance package drove it downward with surgical precision, locked on the waterline. Impact. The warhead detonated with the force of 28 pounds of TNT. The fiberglass hull didn't crack, it disintegrated. The blast ripped through the underside, scattering debris across 100 meters of open water. A white plume of spray rose, then collapsed back into the sea. What had been a sleek go-fast racing north at 45 knots was now splinters, foam, and sinking wreckage. From launch to destruction, 8.3 seconds. The Viper banked into a confirmation orbit, sensors sweeping the debris field. No large sections afloat, no engines, no superstructure, just fragments and ocean. Target destroyed. No second missile needed, no warning shot, no radio call. Just clean, exact, and final. The kind of precision engagement that reminds every cartel network along the Venezuelan coast that the Caribbean isn't a shield anymore. It's a monitored battle space, and the United States owns the geometry. The destruction of that go-fast wasn't just the end of a smuggling run, it was a signal. Cartels rely on speed, volume, and the vastness of the ocean to hide their logistics. But when a U.S. helicopter can intercept, target, and vaporize a vessel in 8 seconds, that signal travels farther than the debris field ever could. American maritime surveillance isn't shrinking, it's expanding. The P-8A Poseidon, the Coast Guard, and the Navy are tightening the gaps across the southern Caribbean, mapping routes, identifying patterns, and breaking the corridor before narcotics ever reach land. The numbers back it up. Tons of cocaine and fentanyl move through maritime routes every year. What gets seized is only a fraction of what's out there. Cartels bet on volume, send enough boats, and some will slip through. Against that strategy, a Hellfire isn't overkill. It's targeted interdiction applied at the exact moment when evasion is still possible, but before the drugs disperse into complex land networks. This operation proved a simple principle: presence, sensors, and rapid response create dominance in the gray zone, the space where civilian and criminal traffic blend, where hesitation allows shipments to vanish. The combination of high-altitude surveillance, precision weapons, and coordinated naval enforcement shifts the balance away from smugglers who once thought the open sea gave them an advantage. The debris may have settled to the ocean floor, but the message remains on the surface. The Caribbean is no longer a permissive zone for fast-moving smugglers. The strike revived the usual regional debate. Every time American forces operate near Venezuelan waters, political voices in South America question whether Washington is applying pressure or overstepping boundaries. The discussion gets louder when the engagement involves a missile, but the legal context is clearer than the politics. Most U.S. interdictions happen well outside any country's territorial sea, in international waters governed by maritime law and regional cooperation agreements. Criminal networks exploit these areas because they assume the lack of borders creates a shield. It doesn't. U.S. operations in these waters are conducted under recognized authority. Washington's position is consistent. Respecting sovereignty doesn't mean abandoning the high seas to unchecked smuggling. The United States doesn't operate inside another nation's waters, but it also doesn't allow international routes to become safe lanes for criminal logistics. A vessel that races through open water on a known narcotics corridor, ignores monitoring, and maintains high speed, enters a space where enforcement is expected. This enforcement isn't based on intimidation. It's based on disciplined capability. The persistent surveillance of the Poseidon, the precise targeting of the Viper, and action taken only when the operational picture is complete. The 8-second strike disrupted a shipment likely worth millions, prevented its spread into land networks, and reinforced a clear precedent. The political debate will continue. The operational reality remains unchanged. What unfolded in the Southern Caribbean distills into 4 essential moments. A Viper lifted off from a Navy ship. A Poseidon delivered precise tracking. A Hellfire followed its programmed arc, and in 8 seconds, a smuggling route that cartels depended on vanished beneath the surface. Beneath that sequence lies a clear truth about modern maritime security. Presence, discipline, and technology form an advantage speed cannot overcome. The Go Fast had horsepower and a straight line across open water. None of it mattered once the surveillance picture locked in. The Viper didn't need a long chase or multiple warnings. It needed a clean track and a single opportunity. The Poseidon mapped the target before the crew on the water had any awareness. The Viper turned that map into a firing solution. The Hellfire ended the run without uncertainty or risk to surrounding vessels. That's how the United States maintains order in a space where cartels rely on chaos. The lesson is simple. Speed may help criminals, but integration protects oceans. And if a small fiberglass boat can vanish in 8 seconds, the next confrontation with larger or even armed smuggling craft will demand even more coordination. If you want to see how those future encounters unfold, give this video a like and subscribe to Military Power. Turn on notifications. What happens next may reshape the way the world understands every high-speed chase on the open sea. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. See you next time.